Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Celebration of You. And as always, I start the show off every episode by thanking all the amazing people out there around the world. I keep mentioning we're now in over 100, I think we're now in over 110 countries, soon to probably be closer to 150 at the rate that things are growing. And that is because of each and every one of you. Those of you that listen and share your stories. And most of all, thank you for letting us know at my website, hollydowling.com, the stories that truly impact you and the messages of hope, because this whole podcast has been a mission on my heart to share stories that I believe are extraordinary, and it brings us hope and inspires us. So today's guest, and you know I get really excited and I end up crying or have goosies and we laugh, and I am so excited about this guest because this particular guest has become, how do I explain that, when you meet somebody and they soon become not only a trusted and amazing colleague, a now partner in the work that we are doing around the world, but also a dear friend. And it's one of those, as I say, serendipity. I know I use that word a lot, but when you're ready and you're open, be prepared for who and what the universe will bring into your life. And this guest, we've attempted to interview him 3 times now. So it's all in the perfect timing that I get to introduce you to my new, wonderful, beautiful friend, David. David Rowe. How are you, Dave?
That is an extraordinary introduction. Thank you, Holly.
Well, you are extraordinary, and that will bring us to extraordinary here in a few minutes. Well, and I can remember and we have to give a shout out to the amazing dear friend that we have in common, who is the reason we met, and that is our beautiful friend, Carla Diago.
Yes, and I will always be grateful for Carla inviting me to breakfast with you. And that really did change everything for me. It was like it lit the touch paper. And actually, I saw Carla recently, and this is not my phrase, but she shared with me a phrase of leading with laughter. And having the opportunity to get to know you, Holly, it has been just a lot of laughter, a lot of joy. I know that's meaningful for some people, the word joy, fun. And hearing how you and your husband, Steve, interact with your extended family. I've had a lot of laughs already, and I'm looking forward to many more laughs in the future.
You're making me laugh right now because, well, for one, I just love that you said that. And I'm having a visual because there's just some things we will not share on this podcast, but those interactions with my darling husband that we have now told you when we have our date days, right?
A, date days, B, with your extended family. So I'm hopeful that anyone who interacts with you in the future will say, what was that British guy talking about? What do you do with your family? And then you can tell them all the details, and they will learn about how to be a better parent, a better husband and wife, and a better grandparent.
Oh, you are. You know what? Suddenly I feel like it's your show and you're celebrating me. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm feeling a lot of love right now. Thank you, darling. And you know what's so funny, Dave, is that you did use the word, and it's true. Why spend any moments not in joy, right? Like I choose joy. And it doesn't mean that life has been full of, it's just been a silver platter of happy moments. It's been a lot of ups and downs. And I truly believe, as you and I have talked on numerous occasions, that it's all a choice. Do we choose to live in woe is me or wow is me? And you and I being connected by a dear friend who is also full of joy and laughter. And I love that, leading with laughter. We're going to add that into all the work we're doing now, that things are taking off, right?
Right.
Well, let me brag on you for a minute because and you'll soon know this, everybody, but Dave and I have very passionate about a common client that we both get to serve. And that client happens to have been where he spent 16 years of his career. And he was and we'll get to what he's doing now because he's now has his own company, of which I'm so privileged and blessed because I get to collaborate with him now. But 16 years of leading teams at Deloitte, and he's truly been in that. You were a former financial kind of statement auditor. You're a chartered accountant, which is so funny when I'm around you, because I have to say, and I'm going to say this with love, but you don't come off as that nerdy calculator guy.
I definitely am that nerdy calculator guy.
Well, I'm just saying. But 16 years of being in that field of work. And yet I truly, now that I know you, I can see why your passion is around people. And what Dave is doing is spending a lot of time now taking from his years of experience and turning around and bringing it back to, especially to leaders, to individual contributors and to leaders. And he has a company called Enlightened Leadership Consulting. And let's talk about that for a minute, Dave. Tell me kind of your passion in starting this, and in a perfect world, what do you love about what you're doing like right now? Tell us about current world at work.
Sure. I'm going to assume that you've seen the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. And in that movie, there's a scene where Jack Nicholson in a courtroom says to Tom Cruise, "Son, I'm in the business of saving lives." That was a terrible, terrible accent. But I like to kind of see myself as I'm in the business of getting people into the business of changing people's lives. And what I do most often is, and I'll say it in kind of layman's speak, what I do most often is I train and certify corporate trainers. And if you can bear with me on a kind of Inception movie basis, so not only do I train and certify corporate trainers, I also train and certify trainers of corporate trainers.
Oh, I love where this is going. Keep going. Add one more pyramid to this.
I have run a trainer for trainers of certified trainers of corporate trainers.
Wait, did everybody catch that? I hope you caught that in that accent that I know is so appealing to listen to. That's crazy, but that tells you what you love to do.
Yeah, I do other things, but that's probably what I spend the majority of my average month doing, and it's what I get the most joy out of.
And can I say that I get, I'm going to already mention it. I was going to wait till the end, but for everybody out there listening, there is this last year and a half has just exploded in ways that, you never imagine until you just trust and surrender to the universe and to God. And yet this program that has been just exploding called Extraordinary Leader, that I've been doing all kinds of work with and just developing it into more and more and more, as to why I'm telling you all about Dave, because Dave is now going to be partnering with me as we take this Extraordinary Leader to a whole new level of certifying trainers. So as you're mentioning what you love, I get to say, yay, I get to be one of the beneficiaries.
Yay! Woo-hoo.
Yeah. And we're just going to keep changing more lives, because that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, so we meet, and Carla's all excited for us to meet, right? And we sit down and we're having breakfast. I remember this, and I can picture where we're sitting. And before you know it, we're in this entirely crazy conversation, because I'm, loving learning more about your past and what you're doing now. And that brought us to, and then I went, now I know why Carla wanted us to meet too. And so Dave, when I was so blown away, and the aha moment that I still get goosies every time I get to talk to you and I think about just the story. So take us back, I believe, because you're the first person, just so you know, I don't know if I've told you this, but you're the first person that I've personally known outside of reading books about people in these situations that I'm passionate about, is you're the first person that I've ever known that's actually experienced and had a near-death experience in your life. And so was that 6 years ago? How long ago was that?
February 18th, 2014.
February 18th, 2014. So yeah, that was, just now, 5 years ago, as of last week. Okay.
Yep. Literally just past the 5-year anniversary.
And so tell us, will you take us through that experience?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of context that I need to give people, which is I grew up in a life, and I'm not looking for any kind of sympathy. Everyone's got their stories, and people have had way worse hardships than I have. I recognize that in many ways I've lived a very privileged life with people around me who loved me and wanted the best for me. But that being said, some of my family dynamics almost had a Jerry Springer-esque quality to them.
Oh, wait, I love it when you tell a story. Oh, wait, Jerry Springer just gave us a big visual here, Dave.
Yeah. And I definitely wanted my life to be different, and I wanted someone to change my life at various points, and that might be one of the drivers to me thinking, oh, I want to be in the business of getting people into the business of changing lives, because that's what I wanted growing up. One particular story. This will probably. I think it will make more sense of the things that we will talk about if I share this.
Love it.
When I was 13, 14 years old, my parents were divorced, and my dad moved away, and I went to go and live with my dad. And it was early September 1992. I was 14 years old, and it was my first day at a new school. And I can remember very clearly walking through the corridors, although what's interesting now is when I think about it, I see me walking through. It's not like I'm looking through my eyes. I can actually see me walking through the hallways, walking through the corridors, into where my classroom was. And as I got closer to this classroom, and you can imagine new school, living in a new place, you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
Feeling pretty scared, pretty vulnerable. And as I got closer to the classroom, I could hear singing. I could hear singing in the classroom. And the closer I got, I recognized the song. And then I walked into the classroom, and then the song was literally all around me. It was immersing all my senses. I was kind of swamped in this song. Unfortunately, it was not a good song. As a result of a number of things, I had kind of ballooned in weight in my early years, and every single person I think that I can remember, every single person in that classroom was singing a song which is well known on soccer fields in England. Whenever a soccer player is maybe larger than other players, they sing a song which has the lyrics, "Who ate all the pies? Who ate all the pies? You fat bastard, you fat bastard, you ate all the pies."
And that was the song they were singing when you walked in.
That was the song they were singing. Everyone was laughing. And at that moment, I would have done anything for my life to just be changed, then to be extracted from that, put somewhere else. It was a memory that is scarred on my heart forever. And so going through kind of adolescence and puberty and stuff like that, I was always thinking the grass was greener on the other side. I didn't really come from a place of gratitude. I'm not sure I could even see that at the time, and certainly faith and spirituality were not a part of my existence. Well, fast forward 22 years, and a lot had changed in my life. A lot has happened. I'd moved from England to the States. I'm very fortunate that I've married an American woman. We now have 3 kids and a dog. Mustn't forget Chapman the dog.
Yes.
And February 2014, there'd been some snowstorms in the Northeast. I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and I'd noticed when I'm shoveling the snow, I was struggling to kind of get my breath back. And I will condense what could be a 3-hour story into maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I actually went to a doctor, which my wife knew it was serious. As soon as I said I'm going to the doctor, she knew it was serious. And I went to the doctor. They said, oh, it's probably bronchitis. They gave me some drugs, and it didn't get any better. And so I then called the doctor, and they said, oh, come in for a chest x-ray. We'll check if it's pneumonia. And I came back after that appointment, and I can remember it must have been about 5 o'clock on a Monday evening. We got the call from the doctor's office saying the x-ray results have come back. It's not pneumonia. So, and I can remember instantly feeling better. It was weird. We felt that my wife and I, one of our vices is we watch these bachelorette shows.
Yes.
We watched it that night, and I was feeling a lot better. And then about 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning, I woke up, and the best way I can describe it is I was drowning in air. I had the feeling, not the thought, but the feeling of I need more oxygen. It wasn't a thought, it was a feeling. Some people have said when you feel thirsty, have equated it to that. Maybe it is like that, but it was a feeling of I need oxygen. And my wife, things progressively got worse and worse. And here's where I say, some people say that they're married to their angel, or their wife is their angel. My wife is literally my angel, and I mean literally my angel, because that morning she saved my life.
Oh my goodness.
She somehow got the kids that we had at the time into a daycare, into the place where they go during the day. She rushed me into the emergency room. It was then where apparently I had gone into like a shell, like a gray tomb of a human body, and apparently the doctors get worried when they put those O2 clips on your fingers. The doctors get worried when your O2 level falls below 95%. Apparently at one point mine was at 67.
Oh my goodness.
And so I had already checked out. I had already surrendered that I was going. This was going to be my last day on the planet. I was rehearsing the words that I'd want my wife to hear.
You were literally knowing at that moment, this is it. Was it because you just couldn't breathe? Because you were just like, you just felt like you were dying? Like, was it just, it's hard to understand that if we've never been there.
Yeah,
right?
it is a strange thing for me to try and articulate. But yes, I had completely surrendered to the fact that I was about to die. And what is interesting is some people have asked me, well, what was that like? And it's weird because in many ways it was petrifying, but in other ways it was very calming and peaceful.
Really?
And I knew that I wasn't alone.
Mm.
And so they got me into the emergency room. They put on what it's called a BiPAP machine, which is, it almost looks like a white version of a Darth Vader mask. And it forces oxygen into you. And during this time, that's where, if you've read books on near-death experiences about tunnels of light and all this, I experienced a tunnel of light. Lots of people who've had these experiences, the way I see it is near-death experiencers or NDEers have different flavors of this. And a number of people report out-of-body visions, out-of-body experiences. I didn't have that, but I did have a tunnel of light. And once they'd got this BiPAP machine on me and literally forcing oxygen back into my lungs, it was after about 30, 40 minutes of that I just felt, okay, I am going to make it. I am going to make it. And I stopped regretting not telling the words that I was going to share with my wife if I thought they'd be my last.
Oh my good. Okay, wait. I'm just kind of in shock because there's pieces of this that I did not know, and I'm glad I did not. When you were, and I know you've probably shared this 100 times, but with me and with our listeners, when you were in that tunnel of light, describe, I mean, are you laying in a tunnel? Were you standing and seeing, I'm picturing like a tunnel like you drive through like in the big cities, right? In Boston, there's a lot of tunnels. Is it like seeing a light at the end of a tunnel, but it's all dark around you? Was it coming in or was it more out there? Can you give us those details?
So here's where the nerdy calculator math guy, if I'd have heard what I'm about to say 6 years ago, I would have stopped listening to this show and said, that guy's an idiot.
I love that.
But here's my response. I was in the light. I was being in the light. And I know that's not going to make sense to many people. The best way I can describe it, there is a word. It's gnosis. Gnosis. It's kind of like knowledge of spiritual mysteries or something like that.
Yes.
I knew, and I'm saying that GNEW, not KNE. I knew I was in the light.
Mm. Was it peaceful? Was it almost surreal? Do you remember the feeling that you had before you knew, well, you are going to make it, right? When they brought you back. But do you remember what that felt like?
It was peaceful. It was exciting. It was love.
You just knew it. The knowing, right? The knowing. Right. And I know people are going to wish and hope I ask this question. So I don't know what the answer is, but did you experience seeing any beings? Like, did you see when people say, oh, sometimes they've seen what they describe as angels, but angels look different than we've seen in the movies or whatever, right? Like, was there anything like that you experienced?
Some people say that they encounter like deceased relatives. I didn't experience anything like that. What I did experience was a connection to something greater than myself. And this is a kind of throwaway comment, but the only thing I know for sure in this life, especially given what I've gone through, the only thing I know for sure is I don't know anything for sure. And right now, today, I could kind of talk to anyone and say, here's what I think this connection is to something greater than myself is. But I'm completely open to the fact that my current understanding might be limited. And so I didn't experience, I didn't see a figure. I didn't meet any relatives. What I will say is, maybe this will help. It felt like my soul interacted with other souls.
Oh, I just got goosies. I'm covered with goosies and my eyes are closed. That to me is, I believe, what most human beings wonder and seek. Let's face it, right? Don't we all seek to know? I always say, what's my soul's highest calling? But to experience something that and the coolest thing about this, Dave, and this is why I am so excited to celebrate you in this, because, and we'll get to what some of the things that have happened since, it's truly transformed your life. And I want people to know Dave wasn't kidding when he said he was not a spiritual or faith-based person. You were actually you were mathematics. You were a scientist by nature, right?
I demanded proof of anything in that realm. And what I can say today is I have had all the subjective proof I will ever need.
Oh, I love that. That's it. That sums it up. And for the man that has spent his life crunching numbers and needing proof, and I love how you said, I demanded proof. You've had all the proof. And there was a purpose. Tell me about, and this is coming to me right now. Wasn't there an individual, and I don't know if you met this individual after this, or was it somebody you knew from before? And I don't know why I'm picturing this person in a basement who was also a scientist, right? And seeing a light or something. Isn't there a story there? What am I missing?
Yeah, there is a story. The broader story is, ever since that experience, I've been almost on a quest to find others who have been through this, who can better articulate it than I can. And it always reminds me of the phrase, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so, yeah, I've kind of spoken to mediums and psychics and healers, and I'm very curious into the things that traditional science, which was the science that I lived by, can't explain. I'm very, very curious by that.
Which is what I think so fascinating, right? Is that you've had, and I don't know which one comes top of mind, but let's talk about the last 5 years, because it transformed you, right? It gave you a whole new, it's like a heightened, and not saying that you're risen above everybody else, but a very heightened level of an understanding of the power of the energy of our universe, right? Like there's an energetic thing that now you're living in, like a different, what's the word I'm looking, a different plane, a plane, plane, like a plane of energy in the universe. And there's been like crazy things that have happened, or things that you've seen or known before they happen. And I'm thinking about, like, there's been so many you've shared with me, and I don't know which one is coming to you, but I'd love for you to share like one of those, because there's so many of them. Maybe it was the picture that was on the wall. Was that in the emergency room that ended up becoming the picture of something?
No, that was a different room. So a couple of things that come to mind as you've talking about. If people haven't seen the documentary, it's called I Am. It's directed by Tom Shadyac, and Tom Shadyac is the director of some of those famous Jim Carrey movies like Ace Ventura, etc. He directed a documentary called I Am, and he directed it after he had his own equivalent of a near-death experience. And he delves into some of this area. There are a couple of organizations, the Institute for Noetic Sciences and the HeartMath organization, which is based out in California. They are looking into, let's say, non-traditional science with a traditional scientific rigor. In terms of a practical example of where something wacky that's happened to me, or something that I would have said that's pretty weird. Maybe the easiest one to share is when I was back in the emergency room. So this was with the pneumonia. I'm not sure if I ever said that while the X-rays came back clean, apparently pneumonia takes time to be detectable on X-rays. So it was pneumonia that had caused it, and I was in intensive care for a week. But when I was first in the hospital, at one point with this BiPAP, the white Darth Vader mask on, the nurse is walking past me and doing something, and I just say the words pipe dreams, and both my wife and the nurse look at me quizzically, thinking, what is he talking about? And I guess they must have assumed that I was delirious or what have you. And about 3 minutes later, I decided I was going to take a selfie to show my friends and family, especially back in England, that I was okay. And so I got out my phone, or I think I actually got it from, I think my wife had my phone, but it was switched off. I switched on my phone, went onto the Facebook app, and the very first thing that was showing on the Facebook feed was an advert, like a little image, which had a piercing light on and the word pipe dreams on.
Okay, I don't think I know this one. I'm covered in goosies again. You literally are laying there in the hospital bed.
Yes.
As you get your phone, turn it on, and you had just said those words to the nurse and your wife, who can both be a testimony to this moment. And then there you are looking at your phone.
And here's where I would, even if I was speaking to myself in the past, I'll never be able to prove to anyone that I had never seen that before. And it's a completely rational argument to say he must have already seen it. He must have already seen it. What is interesting, though, and I wish at the time I was on my collect evidence quest, yes. because I remember looking at it, and it showed when that post had appeared on my timeline, and it was while all the craziness with my pneumonia was happening. So I was not checking my phone as much as I do check my phone. I was not checking my phone when I was gasping for oxygen. And so I'll never be able to prove that to anyone. And to a certain extent, they will have to have a leap of faith whether or not I had or hadn't seen it. But I can categorically tell you that I had not consciously seen that advert before that day.
And this is just one. Oh my goodness, Dave, I just love this. Like we could turn the show into an all day 8 hour, because it's fascinating. What I so love and respect is that it's like, and I'm going to say this is just the only way it's coming through me. I truly believe that God uses people like yourself. And what I mean by that is somebody that was on one far end of the spectrum, the mathematician, right? The scientist who had to have everything proven, right? This could never have been. Like you said, if this was 6 years ago and you were listening to my show, you'd be like, oh, he's a crazy whack, right? There's no way this is possible. And to think that, to go from one extreme to the other is, I believe, part of how we are chosen and what we are put on this earth to do, unbeknownst to us, right? Mm-hmm. We don't ever know. And it's so cool because I love the fact that you've created this business, you're working with leaders, you're doing all this stuff that's still, it's very on the academic side, but just to be around you, there is a light that hovers around you. There is this extra special something. And I don't know if you ever even know that happens, but it's so beautiful is all I'm going to say, because you're coming from such a place of authenticity. And I just wanted to celebrate you right now. This is so exciting for me because there's other stories I've gotten to hear about, right? And some you have to be more visual to show a picture and go, this is the picture of what I saw. And so folks, for everybody listening, this is There's so many. And yet, Dave, you did seek out on your quest to find and meet other people. And there were 2 books. Do you remember when I said to you, like, I'm fascinated with this stuff and I believe it? You don't have to prove to me. Like, the minute you told me stories, I'm like, I believe this. I'm covered in goosies. And we have to, when we wrap this up, we have to share everybody a story that just happened recently when we were together in Arizona. Yeah, right. And yet, what's fascinating is that this continues to happen and you're just open to it, right? You see things differently than most people do.
Yeah. And what's interesting, because I'll never be separated from that kid who went into that classroom. And in many ways, I never want to be. But the kid in that classroom never really gave back. One of the things that I am very fortunate and proud and grateful for is I've, for the last 5 years, been working with a charity in Princeton. It's called Good Grief. They provide basically free bereavement support services to kids who lose a mum or dad or sibling to death. And one of the reasons why I was attracted to the organization is my kids at the time were very nearly candidates for this charity. And in working with that organization and kind of volunteering with them, it's allowed me to be more connected. This is going to sound weird, be more connected to death and what comes out of the experience that is death.
I just love the fact that I knew you were very passionate about this organization. I don't think I realized that it's been in the past 5 years that you've devoted your time to this. Interestingly,
my wife, about 2 months after the pneumonia episode, saw a Facebook ad. Facebook seems to be coming up a lot, but saw a Facebook ad for this Good Grief organization. In my work with kind of training corporate trainers, I do a lot of facilitation, and they were looking for volunteer facilitators. Given my experience, it seemed like a natural fit, and yeah, it's been something which has in fact, I think I heard on your last show that you got into a conversation around selfless and self-care, or selfless and selfish. And when I heard that, it's something that's been true for me, that in order to be selfless, you sometimes need to be selfish. And in order to be selfish, you sometimes need to be selfless. Well, Good Grief is my opportunity where those two almost come together simultaneously. I'm completely giving of myself, but I'm also selfishly benefiting from being involved.
And I love the way you just put those two together, because you really are selfless in the act of wanting to be there to support them. But selfishly, it's really, it's feeding your soul. It's, right. It's all those things that you never would have thought about doing 6 years ago, but by God, 5 years now. And we have to, Dave, the stories could be endless. And I remember I just have to share 2 things, because when we were together, when we first met, and I was like in awe of all these stories, and we're like, we couldn't stop. And we're like, oh my gosh, we have to actually go do something. We have to go work. And, but I remember sharing with you a couple of the books that I've read that had really impacted me from people that have written books. Right. And you were so cute, because you're like, oh yeah, I've met those people. All these people go to these conventions, right? I've had coffee with that person, and I'm like, it's like it's its own world. And that's also so cool, is that you've continued to give of your time, tell your story, right? Sometimes it's just about you being that angel on assignment. And so we have to share, as we wrap this up, so you and your amazing friend Lane were both together in Arizona. We were having a full day get together, because this, I believe, when I use the word anointed, as I was mentioning at the start of the show, the Extraordinary Leader, this program that's just taken off, that I've been really open and just praying about, like, this is going huge very fast. I need the right people to be brought. And it was you and Lane. So here we are spending a day having a blast, right? We're in Arizona, brainstorming and doing all this, and it's just ideas are flowing. And then we took a break, and then we were meeting for dinner. And on that break, you took a picture standing there looking up at the sky. Yes. And you had no idea when you texted me that picture that then we were going to talking about at dinner. It was Well, you tell everybody because it blew my mind.
Well, I am. It was February, and I'm in Arizona, so I go outside, and it's a beautiful day. Not many clouds in the sky, and all of a sudden I look up and I see something. And I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. And then there's a woman sat next to me, and I don't know who this woman was. And I said, can you see that? And she says, yeah, I can. And I said, have you ever seen anything like that before? And she said, no, I haven't. And I said, me neither. So I took a photo. And about a minute later, it disappeared. And I'll explain what it was. It was an inverted rainbow in the desert, with no rain, not many clouds, and I've never seen one before, and so I thought that's kind of weird, and so I took a photo and I sent it to yourself and Lane, and I said, oh, it's almost like someone's smiling down on us, because it looked like a bit like a smile, and yeah, that's when you proceeded to tell me that it seems like important days in your life, somehow, somewhere, a rainbow appears.
Always. I mean, I'm literally getting emotional because I remember you sending me that picture, and then we sat down to eat, and it's like, you go, it looked like God smiling at us. Who has ever seen, and not an upside down, I like the word inverted better, rainbow, and it was for real. And that day I knew was going to change our lives for the better forever. Because we're all in a place of just trust. And if that's the one thing people can walk away with today, Dave, is you just never know what tomorrow can bring. Right. And you never know what the outcome of that could be. I mean, look, you're here and you're alive, and you did survive, and you're taking the time to truly cherish your family, cherish your wife, cherish life, and not miss an opportunity to change people's lives in the work you're doing. So I thank you. And I have to give a shout out that, and I'm going to release this very quickly, because Dave and Lane, we are actually hosting April 2nd in Salt Lake City, and you have to reach out to get the details. It's by invitation only, but it's the first semi-public-private extraordinary leader, and it's filling up very fast. But if you want to be considered to come explore what this whole journey is all about, please reach out, and you can. Dave, actually, this is a good point. People are going to want to reach out, and whether they want to talk to you or just learn more about you, what is the best way to do that? Do you want them to go to LinkedIn? You want them to reach out to your business? How would you like people to reach out to you?
LinkedIn is probably the best. My website for if you Google Enlightened Leadership Consulting, you'll get there. It's enlightened-leadership.co is the website. Those are the two best mechanisms.
I love that. I love that. And, I'm just going to put you on the spot for one last moment, because you are always so full of nuggets of wisdom, inspiration, whatever happens just comes through you. What parting advice, what would you love to share with everybody? And I typically ask guests, if you were to go back to your 25-year-old self or your younger self, but this might be to your 14-year-old self. This might be to a 21-year-old self, but based on everything you've been through in your lifetime, and especially after this transformation in your life, what wisdom or advice would you give your younger self based on who you are today and what you know?
It's a powerful question, and especially given some of the things which happened in my childhood, it's almost hard to say what advice would I give. I do remember I got to meet a hero of mine. You talk about serendipity, and I asked them the same question. They said, start young, which I thought was great. Someone else told me in my career, do enough of what you love and the rest will fall into place. The advice I would give, but I'm going to switch it up. The advice I would give would be volunteer your strengths. But in the work I do about training and certifying corporate trainers, I'm all about essentially creating what I call master askers. And so I wouldn't give advice. I'd ask myself or anyone a question. And it's a two-part question. I think I would ask them, here's the first part. What are 10 new ways you could start volunteering your strengths now that will excite you? What are 10 new ways you could start volunteering your strengths now that would excite you? And the second part to the question is, which one are you going to do?
I love this. I am just smiling. I love this. And which one are you going to do? And you're not just saying this, because the reality is, write it down. Don't just think about it, right? Write it down.
Right.
Oh, of course, as always, just spending time talking to you is always inspiring. I get so excited. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for the honor of sharing what's been a very sacred time of your life, right? And it's been, you haven't gone public with any books. I know you've been starting to write about this journey, but I just so feel blessed that you shared with us. And I'm honored to know that who knows what's coming next, but something extraordinary is happening. And I am honored to be joining forces with you.
I have a suspicion there will be a lot of joy.
A lot of joy and a lot of laughter.
So maybe we should end with laughter as well as lead with laughter.
Yeah, okay, I like that. We're going to totally do that. And I think that everybody that's listening is going to go, I love that accent, and especially when he giggles.
Hey, it worked with my wife.
It did. And look, she's still with you.
Exactly.
She just used to pray that you would start to pray. Now she just prays you won't be a minister. You
weren't supposed to say that. Shh.
I know, but I'm saying that in light. I think my husband would agree with you. Like, what's Holly really doing out there? He knows I'm going to start my spiritual quest here any day.
Great stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, my friend, and just have a wonderful rest of the week. And thank you, as always, for being in my life.
Have an extraordinary rest of your week.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.